Everything Beautiful is Far Away is a 2017 sci-fi fantasy film. The story revolves around two people who embark on a journey across a desert planet in search of a crystal lake. They are accompanied by a robot on this adventure. The film is simple, focusing more on human emotions and nature. The story begins by showing us a desolate area where we see the main character, Leonard, setting out on his journey. Along with this, we hear the voice of a robot saying, "I can neither lie nor tell the truth. Whatever I say is just memories." As far as I remember, he didn't like living in the city. So, he left the city and started living in the desert. But living in such a harsh place was very difficult. That's why he created me, to make it easier for him to survive here. Wherever we went together, and I took care of him. But as time passed, the sand damaged my artificial body. First, my legs broke, and then my waist, until I could no longer move, and my body completely fell apart. When Leonard couldn't find any backup batteries, my cortex shut down. But before I completely powered off, Leonard promised me that he would fix me and give me a new body. This all happened 982 days ago. This narration helps us understand that Leonard has been living in this desert for a very long time. There's no one around for miles. But the good thing is that there's food and water here. There are 2 or 3 types of fruits that grow, which is why Leonard has survived in this desolate place and is quite content. The only thing that makes him sad is that his robot companion is broken, and he hasn't been able to fix it. Now, only the robot's head remains, and Leonard carries it with him wherever he goes. One day, after eating, Leonard was about to head out when he spotted a girl in the distance. She was unconscious, with foam coming out of her mouth. Seeing this, Leonard quickly tried to give her some medicine. He realized that the girl had eaten a poisonous fruit native to this area. A few hours later, when the girl regained consciousness, he showed her 2 types of fruits. He explained that the ones with a red mark are safe to eat, while the ones without it are poisonous. The 2 fruits looked almost identical. The girl's name was Rolla. She listened to Leonard and watched him, but she didn't thank him for saving her life. Instead, she just walked away. Rolla didn't have much with her, and in this desert, you need a lot to survive. Leonard ignored this and moved on. People from the city had created strange and scary stories about the desert. So even if you met someone here, trust was hard to come by. In some parts of the desert, you could find supplies as if someone had left them behind or as if someone once lived there. Due to the sandstorms, everything had sunk into the desert. When Leonard saw some supplies buried in the sand, he started looking for batteries for his robot, which he had named Susan. Just as he was about to open a box, it suddenly snapped shut, causing Leonard to fall. A piece of metal got stuck in his head, and since Susan had been offline for the past 982 days, she couldn't help him either. By chance, Rolla, the same girl who had crossed paths with Leonard before, happened to pass by and saw him in this state. But instead of helping him right away, Rolla started searching through his belongings. She found Susan's head and thought it was strange. Then, while looking through his bag, Rolla found a journal that told the story of a lone samurai. She began reading the story. After finishing it, she finally approached Leonard. Rolla carefully removed the metal piece from Leonard's head and bandaged the wound. When Leonard regained consciousness, he saw Rolla sitting in front of him. She told him, "I read your story," Leonard replied. "You weren't supposed to read that." After this, Rolla went to pick some fruits. They shared a meal together, and for a while, Rolla stayed with Leonard. Later, Rolla found a backup battery among the supplies. Since Susan, the robot, had been offline for a long time, Leonard used the battery to power her up. Susan was happy to see Leonard alive and well. Her programming made her care for him. Then, Susan started talking about the crystal lake, repeating that it was nearby. Before this, Rolla wasn't very interested in Leonard or his robot, but hearing about Crystal Lake piqued her curiosity. However, the backup battery didn't have much power, so Susan went offline again. Rolla then asked Leonard, "Do you know where the lake is? Is that why you're here, searching for it?" Leonard responded, "Do you really think there's a magical lake in this desert?" Rolla was convinced that such a place existed, but Leonard wasn't so sure. He had been wandering the area for a long time and hadn't seen any lake. Rolla didn't trust Leonard. She thought he was hiding the truth from her. Leonard explained, "I came to the desert because I didn't like living in the city, and I wanted to fix my robot." Rolla went silent for a moment and then said, "I want to come with you. Together, we'll find that magical lake. We'll travel at your pace." Leonard thought for a moment and then agreed, saying, "All right, but we'll only travel during the day." So, the two of them set off on a journey to find the lake. Leonard's robot, Susan, wasn't designed to know anything about a lake, so it surprised him that she had this information. They would only find out how Susan knew about the lake when they could power her up again with another backup battery. Rolla had come from the city and wasn't very skilled at surviving in the desert. But each day, Leonard taught her something new. He knew a lot about the desert and often found good things to eat. One day, he gave Rolla a device to extract water and told her to try finding some. Usually, Leonard had to place the device in different spots on the ground, and eventually, water would be found in one of them. As Rolla was trying, she saw a light in the distance. She told Leonard about it and suggested they go there. But Leonard reminded her, "Our goal is to find the lake. If you keep wandering off, you'll never find what you're looking for, and our journey will lose its purpose." Rolla felt upset by his words and didn't manage to find any water. So Leonard had to do it himself. Feeling frustrated with her failure, Rolla refused to drink the water Leonard found. The next day, they set out on their journey again. This time, Rolla found some mint plants and added a few leaves to Leonard's water, which made it taste much better. As they traveled, they saw another person coming towards them. Trusting strangers in the desert was risky, but Leonard waved his hand to show that they meant no harm. When the person came closer, they saw he was an older man traveling alone. There wasn't much conversation between them. The man had his own supplies, food, and water. Leonard asked him how long he had been traveling, and the man replied, "For 3 weeks." Rolla invited the man to join them, but he grew suspicious. When Rolla asked about batteries, the man started to leave. As he was going, Rolla asked him what he was doing in the desert. Leonard tried to stop her from asking, but the man paused and answered, "I didn't like where I was before, and I don't like where I am now, so I just keep moving and never stop." With that, he walked away. Rolla asked Leonard why he had stopped her from talking. Leonard explained, "I was just looking out for you. We need to take care of each other." Rolla appreciated this. The next morning, while Leonard was sleeping, Rolla quietly took his journal and started reading. Leonard had continued the story, where the samurai had now found a companion. Rolla realized that Leonard had written the story about himself, and she was the companion mentioned in it. Before he woke up, she carefully put the journal back. While searching through the supplies, Rolla found something very valuable, a fusion-centric energy core that could provide infinite energy. Leonard was thrilled because now Susan would never go offline again. He connected the core to Susan, and as soon as she powered up, Susan first checked on Leonard's condition, scanning him to see how he was and how long she had been offline. Susan remembered seeing Rolla with Leonard before and asked, "Did you find a new body for me?" Leonard apologized, saying they hadn't found one yet but that they now had infinite energy so Susan's system would remain online. Rolla asked Susan about the Crystal Lake, which she had mentioned before. Susan replied yes, the Crystal Lake was close before, but not anymore. Rolla wanted to know how far it was and how many days it would take to reach there. Susan said it was hard to estimate the time accurately and depended on their speed. If they went at Leonard's pace, it would take about 2 weeks. Susan was designed to take great care of Leonard, monitoring things like his water intake, heartbeat, and blood pressure. She was a very advanced machine. Since Susan had a map of the lake, they followed her directions as they continued their journey. When they reached a certain point, Susan warned that the area ahead was dangerous. In other parts of the desert, they could usually find some food, but the area they were about to enter had no food. The journey could last several days, and there was a chance they might not make it. Rolla suggested that they should take whatever food they could find with them. She was scared of dying in the desert, but they decided to continue their journey, which was very tough for both of them. One day, Rolla's intentions changed. She started searching through the supplies for something that could give Susan a new body. Leonard stopped her and asked if she didn't want to find the lake. Rolla replied that she did want to find the lake but thought giving Susan a new body was also important. Rolla asked Susan if she didn't want a new body, but Susan said that wasn't their current goal. They needed to find the lake. Susan pointed out that their energy was running low and if they didn't move forward, they would die. Despite Susan's warnings, she understood Leonard's feelings. He had never managed to fix Susan, and it seemed like he had lost his purpose in life. Susan was always off when she didn't have power, but her clock kept running, so she knew how long she had been with Leonard. She had realized earlier that Leonard wouldn't be able to fix her. Susan was programmed to have human emotions, but Rolla encouraged Leonard about finding body for Susan and said, "Since I met you, I've liked everything about you. You're not a machine, so you don't need a specific purpose. Just do what makes you happy and let everything else go." With this new perspective, Leonard starts to enjoy his time with Rolla. But now, they had no food and couldn't go back, which made them very stressed. One day, they found some fruits. Leonard thought they might be poisonous, and Susan's system didn't have any information about them. Leonard believed eating them could be fatal within seconds. Rolla didn't think so, so she decided to eat one while Susan counted to 30. When nothing happened to Rolla, it meant the fruit wasn't poisonous. The food problem was solved, and eventually, they reached the Crystal Lake, which turned out to be an ocean. Both were thrilled and spent hours swimming and catching fish. Leonard also updated Susan's programming so she could make decisions on her own. The film ends here. The film's meaning is hidden in its name. It shows that only after hard work or searching for something elusive does one truly appreciate its beauty. It also beautifully portrays the beauty of solitude. It's definitely not the typical science fiction movie, but in my opinion, it's a good watch.